Hello, everyone. This is Cyndi Mazzaferro, and I am so excited to be having another interview with a fabulous author. Her name is Cyndi Turner, and she is a licensed clinical social worker, licensed substance abuse treatment practitioner, and master addiction counselor. She is the co-founder and clinical director of Insight into Action Therapy, with offices in Fairfax and Ashburn, Virginia. Cyndi has been in the addiction treatment field for over 20 years. She co-developed and facilitates the Dual Diagnosis Recovery Program, is a national speaker, supervisor for licensure, good therapy, toxic expert and contributor, and therapist for players involved in the National Football League program for substance abuse. Her #1 new release book, Can I Keep Drinking? How Can You Decide When Enough is Enough, offers alternative ways to have a healthier relationship with alcohol. So welcome, Cyndi. So happy to have you here today.
Thanks so much for having me, Cyndi. I'm excited we got it done.
I am too. Well, you're a busy woman and I am too. So I am so excited to be able to talk a little bit about you and your book and the work that you do. And I think it's such a powerful time in our world where alcohol age has been increased. People can drink earlier than they did much before. And it is a very difficult understanding of when does alcohol really play a role in your life and how does it really impact it? When does it impact your relationships and your life and productivity? So I'd love to actually first talk about, what was your inspiration for writing Can I Keep Drinking and how you can decide when enough is enough?
Well, would it surprise you that there are almost 90 million people in the United States alone who are not getting the right kind of help? That ultimately was the reason I wrote this book. I've been practicing for over 20 years, working with clients who struggle with alcohol and not always alcohol addiction. So for example, I would get some clients who would come in and they would have an issue with their drinking. They might have been court referred or they had a DUI, or I joke and say they might have been spouse referred. Husband or wife might have said, this is affecting our relationship too much. And they might go through their mandatory treatment. And at a certain point, they would say to me, can I keep drinking? And I thought, well, yeah, I think you might be able to. So did the research and found that number, that 90 million, there are many, many people who are avoiding getting help for fear of having to stop drinking forever, fear that they're going to be forced into high levels of treatment. And that number is actually the people who have an addiction is only about 6%. That number is the people who live in the state of Florida, nice place to be this time of year, while that 90 million people, that's the amount of people who live in the central time zone. So that number is much, much bigger.
Interesting. Well, I think we have to really, first, I'd like you to define what is drinking. How do you define that? And when do we be able to identify how much is too much and when you have actually had a problem? How do you define both those components?
That is challenging. and that's the crux of what this is about. And that's why I designed the quiz and wrote the book. Drinking alcohol, we look at wine. A glass of wine is 5 ounces. Got to get that extra little bit. Liquor is 1 ounce, and beer is typically 12 ounces, although some of those percentages do vary. And a problem, I say what causes a problem is a problem, because what one person struggles with may not be an issue for another person.
I have 2 adult sons, and my husband, when he was much younger in his youth, he's in 65 now, he drank a lot back then. And back in that time frame when he was a 20-year-old, drinking was much more permitted, acceptable. It was kind of more the norm, the hippie age, all of that liberation, if you will. And today there's so much more constraints on it. And one of the things that I often pose to people is, why do we drink? And because to me, I don't need a drink to celebrate, to feel relaxed, to be more jovial, where a lot of people do. And then there's, of course, people who drink because they need to kind of hide their pain, to wither away, to find a resource to get numb, if you will. And I just wondered, how do you feel alcohol plays in relationships to our social interactions?
Right. It's prevalent in so many different places. And in more and more states in the US, you can purchase alcohol in the grocery store.
Right.
So it's available really almost anywhere. And what I look at is the why. Why is somebody drinking? Is it part of a celebration? That may not be an issue, but if someone is dealing with depression or anxiety or other issues like that, we have to treat the why, the underneath issues, before that person can really assess if they can keep drinking and what type of problem it's causing for them.
Exactly. Now, and I agree with that so much, and I think that's so powerful in that often we go to the doctor to get treatment for a symptom, and so often people turn to alcohol to also treat that why as you define it. Do you also feel there's a familiar patterning, or we learn alcoholism or the behavior of taking to drinking from what we see as parents or other people even in society?
Absolutely. We teach our children what is normal. And what is normal may not actually be normal in greater society.
Yeah.
So if your parents had every party and included alcohol, or if your parents ended the day with several drinks, then we believe that that's how we should end the day as well. Whereas we can also send very positive messages. And I like to work with the whole family, not just the person who has the alcohol issue, because it does affect everyone in the family.
Oh, I love that. We're going to get onto the family. How does someone treat someone that's suffering for alcoholism or feels there's a concern there? How do we actually do that in a very productive way? But before we go there, I'd like you to just tell us, everyone, about this "How do I know if I can keep drinking" quiz that you developed in your book. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's really where this came from. The clients would ask me, can I keep drinking? So initially I developed the "How do I know if I can keep drinking" quiz. And I wish I could say it's an easy check yes, check no, but it's not like that. The quiz gives predictions. There's a number of predictions that are good predictions for the ability to continue drinking. And then there's a number that are very negative predictions. For example, the positive predictions are the willingness to be able to count the drinks, the ability to have gone through a period of abstinence, of not drinking, and seeing what life is like without alcohol in your life. Whereas on the flip side, negative predictors is having blackouts. And that's not just forgetting what I did last night, that's actually losing a chunk of time. There's some people who make it home and they don't know how they got there. That's a very dangerous predictor. Another negative predictor is having withdrawal symptoms. What that means is that person has developed a physical addiction to the alcohol, and that person is likely dependent on it, which means that they're not a good predictor for being able to drink.
Very interesting. And I always say knowledge is power, and I'm always about empowering people to be able to make differences in their life. And I think this quiz can be a powerful quiz in helping one to really quantify to what degree they have a problem, and do they really truly want to seek guidance and expertise, someone from like yourself.
Right. And the quiz is, like I said, it gives predictions, and just the willingness to take a look at the quiz and to look at behaviors and how it affects myself and my health and my relationships, that in itself is a very positive predictor. And it's really all about your relationship with alcohol. And I would say sometimes we need to break up with alcohol, and sometimes we just need to have some better communication and make some changes there.
And it's very interesting. I had a client one time who said that she saw her father all his whole life be an alcoholic, and how it really impacted his relationship with the entire family, and even work relations and things like that, social relationships. And she was so had such a disdain for anyone that took any alcohol, even as an adult woman, that when she would go into a lounge or at a wedding and she saw people drinking, in her opinion, more than they should, and of course that's a decision that everyone needs to make in a very conscious way, that she would look badly upon these people because in her mind it was a sign of weakness, it was a sign of dependency, and it brought back that when you are under the influence of alcohol, that you are not yourself, you're not capable of really reacting and acting in a very beneficial, loving way that's supportive to anyone. Right. And so, but it came from her past. And I wanted to ask you, how much of why you think people turn to alcohol, and I'm talking about excessive alcohol that really impacts their life negatively in whatever way. Why do you think most people turn to alcohol? What do you find as an expert in this field?
I think because it's easy. And like we said, it's so prevalent. And because it is easy, I would say anything that works quickly can be very, very dangerous. Taking a few drinks is going to change anybody's mood and behavior. But every body is different and everybody's situation is different. That's why it's so important to, whether you read the book, get the information there, or you talk to a professional. And at minimum, talk it over with a trusted friend or family member who's going to give you an honest opinion and can help keep you accountable and support you through the difficult changes you may need to make.
Right. And it's so difficult, as a family member, a caregiver, or a spouse, relative of someone, or even a close friend. How do you best support someone who you feel is abusing alcohol? What do you recommend to them?
Mm-hmm. Well, and even with alcohol abuse, there's varying degrees. To get clinical for a moment, one of our changes, the way we diagnose alcohol use disorders, it's on a spectrum now, which is, to me, makes logical sense. It's not an all or nothing. It's not you have a problem or you don't. There can be a mild alcohol use disorder where it's starting to affect your life and your relationships. There's moderate, where maybe there has been some legal charges, the frequency is increasing, the impact of it is increasing, all the way up to severe alcohol use disorder. And that's when we're looking at addiction. That's when people have tolerance, meaning they need more and more of the substance.
Right.
And when they have withdrawals, that their body actually has a physical response if they don't have it. So we need to look at, where do they fall? Someone who has a severe alcohol use disorder probably needs treatment. They probably need to have someone assist them medically to come off the alcohol. So that person is going to be encouraged to get into treatment, while someone who has a mild to moderate, they may actually just need someone to sit down and give them a good hard look at the impact of what's going on.
And I love to really always, again, empower people to realize that when you say, or if you're even following this interview and you're appealing to this, it's something's resonating either for yourself or someone you care about, that you're being brought to this video for a reason, and that it's very powerful for you to take action for yourself. Yes. And that just even listening to this is a trigger to say, I want to do this for myself. I want to even find out, do I have a problem, if you're not sure? Or I'm afraid my addiction to alcohol is really now impacting my family, my love, my financial security, and on, and even my driving and the health of myself and others. And so you are powerful when you decide, I need to take intervention. I need to get that assistance. And this interview and this book that you have is such a great tool for people to help discern as to what degree that they are involved or kind of trapped within the alcohol system. I have a son that used to be in a very stressful job and come every night. He'd have 2 or 3 glasses of wine, and it was a red wine. He said, oh, they say red wine's so good for your health. And he had all the great reasons why drinking those 2 or 3 glasses to relax. I mean, he was using it as more of a, he had equated that this quiet time with his wife, having both of us have a glass of wine was all a wonderful thing, socially acceptable. We're in our home, we're not drinking, we're not driving, and that what's wrong with that? And it used to be one glass, and as time went on, we saw it was two or three glasses, you know. And to me, it was like, why do you need to have the wine as a dependency to relax, to de-stress, to right?
Yeah. So someone like his experience, I would work with that person to find other ways to relax and to look at, are there any modifications in his job that need to occur, and how to find more balance.
Right.
Because alcohol in itself is not bad. It's what does it do to us? And often people who drink every day usually have a challenge with it, because we do often need more and more to get the same effect.
Right. And we're not even talking about the negative physical impacts it has on your body, you know, liver sclerosis, you know, I mean, on and on. There's many, many problems with this. So it is a very serious disease, and something that needs to be addressed. And you need to take personal responsibility for the habitual patterning that you have and how it's increased, and find out the whys. I think that, again, that root cause is so important. I know I talk about in my book the emotional root causes of why we do things, how we experience things, regardless of alcohol. But for some people, that is their protective mechanism. That's their way to deal with their stress and their anxieties and emotional stressors and triggers. So what do you find from all your thousands of people that you worked with? And it was very interesting to hear you actually work with the NFL. I'm sure there's other sports too, but that's pretty prestigious to think that you actually have that relationship with them. So if you had to name 2 or 3 main items, what causes people to start to drink, what would those be?
I would say probably mental health issues, depression, anxiety, stress. Just when life gets to be too much, often people turn to alcohol. And I think sometimes the other main reason is just habits. Like you mentioned, your son, it just became a habit to do it. And alcohol is a chemical. And over time, we start to need more and more of it. So what started maybe is just a habit. I had a client who he and his wife would, during hockey season, would sit down and just have a few beers, and they were engaged in the game, and they had a few more and a few more, and they started having some challenges. They weren't alcoholics, but they needed to make some behavioral changes.
Exactly.
And that couple, I'm excited to say, they had stopped biking. They really enjoyed exercising together. So they realized, you know what, let's pick that up again and enjoy that. So sometimes we just get locked into patterns, and it takes someone else to help give us perspective to make those changes.
It's so true, and becomes a pattern and what we expect because of the social environment. I have another son who's in medical school and going on to interviews for residency placement, and part of it is a social gathering, and often the residents that are already there will take them out to check out the city or whatever, and part of that is wanting to fit in, and everyone's at the bar and there's a lounge and people are drinking, and it's like it would be weird if you didn't have a drink.
And the funny thing I teach my clients is nobody has to know whether you have gin in the tonic, or rum in the Coke, and some people choose not to drink because they just don't want the calories.
Yeah, that's another thing.
People to have a mocktail or other beverages can be very helpful.
Right. So thank you for all of this. This has been great, but I want to kind of divert a little bit now. I know you do presentations and speak on the whole problem with alcoholism and what they can do to empower people to create changes in their life and patterning and behavior. But one of the times I heard is that you often hand out water, donuts, cucumbers, and pickles. So what's all this about?
Yes. I believe in life we have to have a little fun. So that's how I start my presentation, is helping people figure out which one are you, whether it's you or whether it's the client or really even a loved one. So this helps break down the different types of drinkers. So the first one I go into is water. And waters represent the type of drinkers who don't drink at all. And I will tell you, many people are shocked at this number. It's actually about 30% of the population.
I'm pretty much that one. I might have 2 glasses of wine over a whole year. Right. I got a wedding or, something like that, but I'm pretty much a water drinker.
Yeah. People who just, don't want the calories, don't like the effect. Maybe they be in long-term recovery where they've chosen not to drink at all or have family members. The next group of people are what I call donuts. Donuts, I know, because everyone loves some donuts, right? Donuts represent about 28% of the population. And that's what I say is drinking alcohol is like eating donuts.
What was that? I couldn't hear you.
Drinking alcohol is like eating donuts. Having 1 or 2 occasionally isn't going to hurt you, but having several a day is eventually going to lead to serious consequences.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
So that is the typical drinker, the person who may have a couple too many, say on New Year's, and says, whew, I'm not going to do that again for a while. But they, and if they plan to drink, they have a ride home, the kids are taken care of, they plan ahead for this. The next group are what I call cucumbers. This is where we are starting to get into some challenges with alcohol. Cucumbers represent 22% of the population. That's that number that represents that 90 million, the people who live in the central time zone. My big crusade, if you will, is to get help for this percentage of people. Because what's happening is the majority of treatment and help is geared to the next smaller number that I'll talk about. But cucumbers are people who are starting to have some challenges. They're not yet dependent on alcohol. Whereas the next group are pickles. And it's always sad when we pick the pickles in the audience because people are like, darn it, I didn't want that to be me. Because that number is 6%. Now, many people are shocked at how small that percentage actually is. So 6% of the population in the US is about 17 million people. And these are people who, unfortunately, they are physically dependent on alcohol. They drink very frequently. The consequences are severe. And the great news is most treatment is geared towards them, but that whole gap of people, like cucumbers, don't have a lot of help. So that's who I'm trying to reach. And the idea is once you go from being a cucumber into a pickle, you can't go back. So is trying to prevent people from turning into pickles. And I have a number of clients who are pickles, who are alcohol dependent, who've had many challenges, DUIs, really hard lives. And they've said to me, you know what, Cyndi, if I learned this information in my 20s or 30s, I might not have progressed along that spectrum.
Right. And, I think what your work is fabulous, and that what you're doing is so important. And I think that it's not our 40, 50, 60-year-olds. It's also our young children that are, in my opinion, have emotional, mental pre-problems, stresses that they're incurring, and that they're going to the cocaine or the opiates or the pills or the alcohol or combinations thereof, or abusive sexual relationships. All of these things are vices to sedate or to numb our hurts and our pains that we're experiencing in our life, because it's the why that we are now diverting to these vices. And they really are potentially killing us, to be honest.
Unfortunately, yeah, it's devastating. And that's what I want people to know is there's help. And it doesn't have to be, laying on a couch with a shrink telling me how you feel. It's really just about finding balance and happiness in our lives and learning how to have fun and relax. That's a lot of what my treatment is when I work with people. And people are shocked that that's, I don't want to say that easy, but that you're going to come out happier and healthier, because people think sobriety is miserable. And most people who attempt alcohol moderation, they actually choose to continue to stay abstinent because they find that alcohol was causing more consequence in their lives. So for each client, it's a personal choice as far as what works for them.
Right. And I'm sure you, talking through the happiness part of being happy, learning to be happy, part of that is also emotional authenticity, being comfortable enough to share your emotions to yourself and to those around you. And I think so often people go to alcohol to be funnier and to fit in, or to be more loud because they tend not to have a voice, lots of different reasons. And that emotional transparency, I'm sure you also talk about with your clients.
Absolutely. I work with people on practicing and role playing. Well, how might I handle that work function where I know there's alcohol going to be present and they know me as the person who's the fun, happy, loud guy, as opposed to, realizing that I can be somebody different, and I can like myself in the morning and be prepared in that situation.
So in your book, you talk about moderation versus abstinence. So can you just define a little bit about that?
Sure. Abstinence is being completely alcohol free. And again, I like people to have a choice in that and come to that decision on their own versus me telling them what role alcohol plays. Moderation, this is a newer treatment that is very viable for a lot of people. And moderation, there's several different definitions. The CDC defines it as having up to 1 drink a day for women and 2 for men, whereas the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, it's a big one, says no more than 14 drinks a week. 21 drinks for men and 14 for women.
Wow.
I'm a little concerned with that one.
That's pretty high.
And now that one also says no more than 3 drinks at a time. Because the reality is when we have 3 drinks, most people are starting to feel an effect and they're not going to stick to their moderation.
Well, you definitely can't drive after that. My husband and I use the rule, for every 1 glass of alcohol, you have to have 1 full glass of water. So you alternate. And it's a great technique. It's nothing famous, but it's a great way to purify, cleanse before you just take another glass of alcohol.
Right. You're practicing moderation.
Yeah.
And you didn't even know it.
It's just a behavior. It's just a behavior. And I love what you said before, which is true. People don't know what's in the glass. So go up, and maybe you're the one that buys the round, but they don't know if you're ordering just ginger ale. It doesn't have to have some alcohol in it. So all of these are tips that are in your book. So can you show us your book up front and close? I see it in the background.
Absolutely. It's Can I Keep Drinking? How You Can Decide When Enough is Enough. And I take people through helping them self-assess, figure out what role alcohol plays in their life, all the way up to the quiz and interpreting the quiz and coming up with an alcohol moderation plan, relapse prevention plan, as well as at the end, if realizing that alcohol is more of a concern, it also helps you locate what kind of resources are out there.
I love it because you take them through all different parts, not just let's create a new behavior or let's first diagnose you if you do have a problem. Then it's, so it's all the way, even if you have the relapse, how do you do all of it? So it's a really great a total picture of the potential problem or the existing problem that could be part of your life. And very important. So how do people get in touch with you personally or your company?
Well, you can find me at canikeepdrinking.com. Okay. The quiz is available online, and I want people to have access to it. The only requirement I have for people or request is that you go over it with someone who knows you well, and most importantly, someone who is trained in alcohol moderation and substance abuse, so they can really help you if you're questioning the problem. But if you live anywhere in Northern Virginia, I can personally help you, but the book I think is a really good start.
Right. Now, do you do consultations for someone that wanted to just go through your screening, your quiz?
Yes, we can do that as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And they can contact you through your website. So where can people find your book? I know it's through Morgan James, our publishing house. Yes. I'll let you tell them.
Online, available anywhere. It's your favorite online or in-store retailer.
Exactly. Well, this has been wonderful. We could go on and on and talk about it, but there's so much included in her book. And I really encourage you all to you really explore it. Look at the reviews, read snippets of it, take her quiz on her own website. And, if this is not for you, it's also a tool that you can buy for someone else if you know that you feel someone else can benefit from it. But so often I have dealt with many people that alcoholism is present in their family and may not themselves be the victim of it, but struggle with understanding how to deal with people who are so engaged in the dependency in alcohol. And it can be really family destroying, relationship destroying, and really can totally impact your life in a very negative way. So
and you don't have to live that way. That's the message I want people to hear.
Yeah. And so the book can even be a tool for you, because you can actually fill out the quiz as the person who is actually involved in the alcohol, and it would give you an idea as to the dependency and where he is in that process of water, donut, cucumbers and pickles.
Yes.
So it's really great, and it's a wonderful, powerful book, and it's so important to help those out there that are in need. So thank you so much for writing that.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me. I hope we can help some people.
Oh, me too. So that's great. So thank you all for joining us today. And again, if you want to reach Cyndi Turner, and Cyndi spelled with Cyndi Turner, you can go to canikeepdrinking.com.
Yes.
And you'll be able to see that questionnaire. And also there's a contact button. You can email Cyndi Turner and ask her your question. So thank you so much. Once again, this is Cyndi Mazzaferro with Powerful Beyond Measure. And to each of you, may you feel empowered, inspired to know that you are powerful beyond measure, and that alcohol does not have to consume you. You are powerful enough to decide what you need to consume on a daily basis. Take care, and to all of you, have a blessed day.